12-foot alien warrior took him wounded and cared for him like only a female could. The acrid smoke of plasma discharge filled Marcus Kane's lungs as he struggled to maintain consciousness. His bare torso, slick with blood and sweat, pressed against the cold metal debris of what was once a defensive position. The remnants of his stealth armor, still clinging to his legs, sparked occasionally, a reminder of the devastating hit that had nearly ended him. Through the haze of pain and the deafening sounds of battle, he caught a glimpse of something extraordinary. A towering figure moved with impossible grace through the chaos, her violet skin seeming to glow against the ash-gray sky. She was one of the Celestials, the giant humanoid race that had become humanity's strongest allies in this war against the mechanical hordes of the Nexus Collective. The Celestial warrior's midnight purple hair streamed behind her like a banner as she carved through enemy lines with devastating efficiency. Her silver eyes, bright and determined, scanned the battlefield until they locked onto his position. In that moment, Marcus felt something shift in the universe, a connection he couldn't explain. "Hold on, little warrior," her voice carried to him, somehow both thunderous and gentle. Before he could process what was happening, she had scooped him up in her arms as if he were no more than a child. Her armor, an elegant fusion of function and artistry, felt cool against his burning skin. "I'm fine," he managed to growl, his pride wrestling with his practical side. "Put me down, I can still fight." She actually laughed, a sound like distant chimes in a summer breeze. "You humans are all the same, always ready to fight, even when you can barely stand." Her name was Nidara, he would later learn, and she was about to change his life forever. The world spun as Nidara carried Marcus through the battlefield, her long strides covering ground that would have taken him minutes to traverse. Despite her imposing height of 12 feet, her movements were fluid and precise, dodging enemy fire while keeping him stable against her armored chest. "Damn it," Marcus cursed as a particularly sharp pain shot through his side. "I had them right where I wanted them." "Of course you did," Nidara responded with a hint of amusement in her melodious voice. "Just like you had them when that plasma burst nearly vaporized you." Marcus tried to muster a witty comeback, but found himself distracted by the way her silver eyes seemed to shimmer with both concern and mischief. His long dark brown hair, matted with sweat and blood, fell across his face as he attempted to maintain some dignity while being carried like an infant. They reached the medical camp, a collection of advanced field units set up behind the main defensive line. The other Celestials moved with purpose around the camp, their violet skin creating an otherworldly atmosphere in the dying light. Some nodded respectfully to Nidara, while others cast curious glances at the human in her arms. "Commander Vale isn't going to like this," Marcus muttered, referring to his superior officer. "I was supposed to hold that position." "Your commander will like you being dead even less," Nidara countered, ducking into one of the larger medical tents. "Besides, I outrank him in this sector." The inside of the tent was a curious blend of human and celestial medical technology. Nidara carefully placed Marcus on a bed size for humans, though it looked comically small compared to her towering frame. "Stay," she commanded, pointing a long, elegant finger at him. "I mean it, Marcus Kane. Try to leave this bed, and I'll tie you to it." Despite his pain, Marcus couldn't help but grin, his thick beard failing to hide his amusement. "Is that a threat or a promise?" Nidara's eyes widened slightly before she let out another of those musical laughs. "You humans and your constant flirting. Even half dead, you can't help yourselves, can you?" "It's part of our charm," Marcus replied, wincing as he tried to find a comfortable position. "Along with our stubborn refusal to die when we're supposed to. That's what makes you such fascinating allies," Nidara said, beginning to gather medical supplies that looked tiny in her large hands. "Other species see your size and assume you're weak. They never expect the fire within." She began cleaning his wounds with surprising gentleness, her massive hands displaying incredible dexterity as she worked. Marcus found himself studying her features, the subtle patterns in her violet skin, the way her midnight purple hair seemed to capture and reflect light, the determined set of her jaw as she concentrated on her task. "You're staring," she noted without looking up from her work, "just trying to figure out why a high-ranking celestial warrior is playing nurse to a human grunt," Marcus replied, trying to ignore the pleasant sensation of her fingers against his skin. "Perhaps I have my reasons," she said mysteriously, applying a healing compound to his worst injury. Now be quiet and let me work. Unless you'd prefer I get one of the human medics? Marcus shook his head, immediately regretting the movement as pain shot through his neck. No, I'm good here. Though I have to admit, this isn't how I imagined my day going when I woke up this morning. Life rarely goes as planned in wartime, Nadara said softly, her silver eyes meeting his brown ones. Sometimes that's for the better. The medical tent became Marcus's world for the next few days. Despite his protests, Nadara insisted on personally overseeing his recovery, her dedication going far beyond what might be expected from a high-ranking celestial warrior. Her gentle ministrations and constant presence created an intimate atmosphere that grew more charged with each passing hour. You need to eat, Nadara declared on the third morning, carrying a bowl that looked comically small in her massive hands. Human bodies require regular sustenance to heal properly. Marcus, still weak but improving, tried to sit up straighter. I can feed myself, you know. I'm not completely helpless. Of course you're not, she replied with that musical laugh that was becoming increasingly familiar. But why should you when I'm here? Her silver eyes sparkled with mischief as she perched carefully on the edge of his bed, which creaked under her weight despite her careful movements. Because it's embarrassing, Marcus suggested, though he couldn't help but smile at her determined expression. What would your warriors think if they saw their commander spoon-feeding a human? They would think I am ensuring the recovery of a valuable ally, she countered, filling the spoon with what appeared to be some kind of nutrient-rich broth. Now open up. Marcus complied, partly because he was genuinely hungry, and partly because he found himself increasingly unable to deny her anything. The broth was surprisingly good, with an exotic flavor he couldn't quite place. This is actually decent, he admitted between spoonfuls. Better than standard military rations anyway. I had it specially prepared, Nadara said, her violet skin seeming to glow slightly brighter. We Celestials understand the importance of proper nutrition during recovery. Their quiet moment was interrupted by the distant sound of explosions. Both warriors tensed, years of combat experience taking over. Nadara's free hand instinctively moved to the weapon at her hip. Status report, she called out, her voice carrying the unmistakable tone of command. A younger celestial warrior rushed into the tent, his armor bearing fresh scorch marks. Commander, the Nexus forces have launched a surprise attack on the eastern perimeter. They've broken through the first line of defense. Nadara's expression hardened, but her hand remained gentle as she set aside the bowl. Coordinate with the human forces. I want a full defensive line established within 5 minutes. She turned to Marcus, conflict evident in her silver eyes. I need to handle this. Go, Marcus said firmly, already trying to swing his legs over the side of the bed. I can help. You will do no such thing, she replied, easily pushing him back with one finger. You're not healed enough for combat. Her expression softened slightly. Please, Marcus, stay here. For me. The way she said his name sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. Before he could respond, she was gone, her powerful stride carrying her swiftly out of the tent. Marcus could hear her shouting orders, organizing the defense of the camp. The sounds of battle grew closer. Marcus forced himself to remain in bed, though every instinct screamed at him to join the fight. Through the tent's entrance, he caught glimpses of celestial warriors moving into position, their massive forms casting long shadows in the morning light. Suddenly, the tent's entrance burst open again. Nadara rushed back in, her armor now bearing fresh battle damage. We need to move you. The eastern section isn't secure. Without waiting for his response, she scooped him up in her arms once more. This time, Marcus didn't protest. He was acutely aware of how her armor pressed against his bare skin, of the strength in her arms as she held him close. I can walk, he offered weakly, more out of pride than actual ability. Hush, she commanded, but there was warmth in her tone. Let me protect you, stubborn human. They moved through the camp at a rapid pace, Nadara's long strides eating up the distance. Around them, the battle raged, but her focus remained entirely on keeping Marcus safe. She ducked into a more fortified bunker, one clearly designed for celestial use. This is your personal quarter, Marcus realized as she gently laid him on a massive bed that could have comfortably held 5 humans. Yeah, she admitted, checking his bandages to ensure their hasty move hadn't reopened any wounds. You'll be safer here. Their faces were close now, her silver eyes meeting his brown ones. The air between them seemed to crackle with unspoken tension. Marcus reached up, his hand looking small as he touched her violet cheek. "Why are you really doing all this, Nidara?" he asked softly. "Why me?" She leaned into his touch, her midnight purple hair falling forward to create a curtain around them. "Because from the moment I saw you fighting against impossible odds, refusing to yield even when badly wounded, I knew you were different. You humans fascinate us, but you..." She paused, searching for words. "You call to something in me I didn't know existed." The sounds of battle seemed to fade away as they gazed at each other. Marcus's heart raced as Nidara slowly lowered her face toward his. The size difference should have made it awkward, but somehow it felt perfectly natural when their lips met. The kiss was gentle at first, both of them aware of their physical differences, but it quickly deepened into something more passionate. Nidara's skin seemed to glow brighter, and Marcus could feel a subtle vibration, almost like a purr, emanating from her chest. When they finally parted, both were breathing heavily. That was..." Marcus started. "Unexpected?" Nidara suggested, a smile playing at her lips. "I was going to say amazing," he replied, running his fingers through her silky hair. "Though we might need to work on the logistics." Her musical laugh filled the room. "Always the tactical thinker, aren't you?" Her expression grew more serious. "This isn't exactly conventional." "Nothing about either of us has ever been conventional," Marcus pointed out, pulling her down for another kiss. "And I've never cared much for rules that don't make sense." Their moment was interrupted by another explosion, this one closer than the others. Nidara straightened, her warrior instincts taking over. "I need to end this attack quickly," she said, her voice filled with determination and something else. Possession, perhaps. "Stay here. I'll return as soon as I can." "Be careful," Marcus called after her as she strode toward the door. She paused, looking back with a smile that made his heart skip a beat. "Always, I have something worth coming back for now." The days following the attack brought a welcome period of calm. As Marcus's strength returned, Nidara insisted he remain in her quarters, claiming it was for his protection. They both knew it was more than that. The massive space became their private sanctuary, where rank and species ceased to matter. "Tell me about your world," Nidara requested one evening, reclining on her bed while Marcus sat cross-legged beside her. Her armor was replaced by flowing robes that emphasized her elegant form, the fabric shimmering with subtle patterns that seemed to match her glowing skin. "Earth?" Marcus ran a hand through his dark beard thoughtfully. "It's beautiful but complicated. We're still learning to appreciate what we have." "Like what?" She reached out, trailing a finger along his arm with surprising delicacy. "The oceans, for one. Miles of blue water stretching to the horizon. Mountains that pierce the clouds. Forests so dense you can't see the sky through the canopy." He caught her hand in his, marveling at the size difference. "What about your homeworld?" Nidara's silver eyes softened with memory. "Celestia Prime is magnificent. Our cities are built into crystal mountains that catch the light of 3 suns. The buildings rise miles into the sky, and the atmospheric bridges between them look like strands of starlight." "Sounds incredible," Marcus murmured, distracted by the way her skin seemed to pulse with a subtle glow when he traced patterns on her palm. "That tickles," she laughed, her midnight purple hair cascading around them as she leaned closer. "Your touch is so different from anything I've known. So... intense." "Good intense?" he asked, his voice growing husky. "Very good," she purred, the sound reverberating through her chest. "Humans are fascinating creatures. So small, yet so..." She paused, searching for the right word. "Passionate." Marcus grinned. "We're full of surprises." To demonstrate, he pulled her down for a kiss that left them both breathless. When they parted, Nidara's skin was glowing noticeably brighter. "You certainly are," she agreed, her silver eyes darkening with desire. "In my culture, such intensity is uncommon. We tend to be more reserved, more controlled." "And now?" Marcus asked, running his fingers through her silky hair. "Now I understand why humans have such a reputation for breaking down barriers," she replied, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You make me want to be less controlled." Their next kiss was anything but controlled. The size difference that should have been awkward somehow made everything more exciting, more intense. Nidara's natural glow brightened until she seemed to illuminate the entire room. "I should warn you," she breathed between kisses, When my people become intimate, our bioluminescence becomes quite dramatic. Marcus laughed softly. I think I can handle a light show. There's more, she continued, her hands gentle as they explored his much smaller form. We form deep psychic bonds during moments of connection. It's not permanent, but it's intense. Are you sure you want? He silenced her with another kiss. I want everything you're willing to share. What followed was beyond anything either of them had experienced before. Their physical union was just the beginning. Nidara's psychic abilities opened a connection between them that transcended mere physical pleasure. They shared not just sensation, but emotion, memory, essence. Marcus experienced fragments of Nidara's life. Her first battle victory, the weight of command, the loneliness of being different, even among her own kind. She, in turn, felt his determination, his fierce loyalty, his growing feelings for her that went far beyond physical attraction. Hours later, they lay entwined, Nidara's natural glow creating shifting patterns on the ceiling. Her massive form curled protectively around Marcus's smaller frame, one hand absently stroking his hair. That was, Marcus started. Unprecedented, Nidara suggested, amusement coloring her tone. I was going to say mind-blowing, but that works too. He propped himself up on an elbow to look at her. I've never experienced anything like that psychic connection. She smiled, tracing a finger along his jaw. Neither have I, at least not with that intensity. Humans feel everything so deeply, so completely. It's intoxicating. Is that unusual for your people? We're taught from childhood to control our emotions, to maintain dignity and reserve at all times. She laughed softly. You've rather thoroughly destroyed my reserve. Good, Marcus replied with a grin. You're beautiful when you let go. Her skin flickered with pleasure at the compliment. There are many among my people who would consider this inappropriate. A celestial warrior commander, particularly a female one, involving herself with a human? And what do you think? I think, she said, pulling him closer, that anyone who would deny this kind of connection because of species or rank is a fool. Besides, her eyes sparkled with mischief, humans have proven themselves to be far more than what they appear to be. We do have our moments, Marcus agreed, settling comfortably against her. Though I have to admit, being with someone who can literally light up a room with pleasure is a new experience. Just wait until you learn about our other abilities, Nidara teased, her glow pulsing suggestively. Their laughter was interrupted by a soft chime, the communication system requesting attention. Nidara sighed, reaching for the control panel near her bed. Commander, a voice reported, the Council requests your presence for a strategic briefing. They specifically mentioned bringing your human guest. Marcus and Nidara exchanged glances. Well, she said with a slight smile, I suppose it was only a matter of time before we had to face the official response to our cultural exchange. Are you worried? She shook her head, her midnight purple hair shimmering in her own light. Number, what we have is real, powerful. Even the Council will have to acknowledge that. Besides, she added with a predatory grin, I'd like to see them try to separate us now. The Celestial Council Chamber was designed to intimidate, its crystalline spires reaching impossibly high into the violet sky of Celestia Prime. Marcus stood beside Nidara, feeling dwarfed not just by her impressive height, but by the grandeur of his surroundings. Yet he held his head high, his warrior's pride evident in his stance. You're about to experience something few humans ever have, Nidara murmured, her hand resting protectively on his shoulder. The binding ceremony. Should I be nervous? Marcus asked, adjusting the formal attire she'd provided. A blend of human and celestial styles that somehow worked despite the size difference. Terrified, she replied with a playful smile that made her silver eyes dance. But you'll face it with typical human courage, I'm sure. The massive doors swung open silently, revealing a circular chamber filled with towering, celestial dignitaries. Their violet skin displayed various patterns of bioluminescence, creating an ethereal atmosphere. At the center stood a raised platform bathed in light from 3 artificial suns, miniature replicas of the stars that warmed their homeworld. Commander Nidara, the chief elder's voice resonated through the chamber. You seek to bind yourself to this human warrior? I do, she replied, her voice clear and confident. And you, Marcus Kane of Earth, you understand what this means? The implications of joining your essence with a celestial? Marcus stepped forward, his voice strong, despite being the smallest being in the room. I understand that I love her. Everything else is just details. A murmur rippled through the assembled Celestials, their skin flickering with various emotions. The Chief Elder's expression remained neutral, but there was a hint of amusement in his ancient eyes. Humans, he mused, always so direct. Very well, approach the binding circle. As they stepped onto the platform, Nadara's hand found Marcus's. The size difference that had once seemed so insurmountable now felt natural, right? The three artificial suns began to rotate around them, their light creating intricate patterns on the crystal floor. The binding is not merely symbolic, the Chief Elder explained. It will create a permanent psychic link between you, deeper than any temporary connection you may have experienced. Your emotions, your sensations, your very essence will be shared. Are you prepared for such intimacy? Marcus looked up at Nadara, seeing the love and trust in her silver eyes. We already share everything that matters. The ceremony began with ancient words in the celestial tongue, words that seemed to vibrate through Marcus's very being. The artificial sun spun faster, their light becoming almost liquid as it wrapped around the couple. Nadara's natural glow intensified, her violet skin becoming translucent as the energy built. Through their joined hands, Marcus could feel the power building, different from their previous intimate connections, but somehow familiar. Your cultures are as different as your sizes, the Chief Elder intoned. Yet in this difference lies strength. The binding will bridge these gaps, creating something new, something unprecedented. The light reached a crescendo, and suddenly Marcus could feel everything. Nadara's thoughts, her memories, her very essence merging with his own. It was overwhelming yet perfect, like finding a piece of himself he never knew was missing. Hours later, in the privacy of their newly assigned quarters in the celestial capital, they lay together, still basking in the afterglow of their union. The room was designed to accommodate both their needs, a physical representation of their bridged cultures. I can still feel you, Marcus said wonderingly, tracing patterns on Nadara's glowing skin. Not just physically, but here. He tapped his temple. The binding is permanent, she replied, her happiness radiating through their new connection. We'll always be part of each other now. Is it always this intense for your people? No, she laughed, the sound sending pleasurable ripples through their shared consciousness. Humans feel everything so deeply. Your emotions, your passions, they've amplified the binding beyond anything in our records. Sorry about that, Marcus grinned, not sorry at all. Never apologize for being human, Nadara said, pulling him closer. Your intensity, your ability to feel so deeply, it's what drew me to you in the first place. Through their bond, Marcus could feel the truth of her words, along with something else, a deep pride in having chosen him, in defying convention to follow her heart. The council seemed surprised it worked so well, he noted. They underestimated humans, as so many do. Her skin flickered with amusement. They forgot that your species' greatest strength isn't your technology or your fighting skills. It's your capacity for adaptation, for embracing the unknown. Speaking of embracing, Marcus began, but was interrupted by a soft chime. Urgent message from Earth Command, a voice announced. They request immediate communication with Marcus Kane regarding his unique situation. They exchanged glances, both feeling each other's mix of amusement and apprehension through their bond. I suppose it's their turn to be shocked, Nadara said, her skin pulsing with mischievous light. They'll adapt, Marcus replied confidently. Humans are good at that, remember? The mission briefing chamber aboard the celestial flagship Starlight Sentinel hummed with energy as Marcus and Nadara stood before the holographic display. Their recent binding had enhanced their natural abilities in unexpected ways, making them the obvious choice for this delicate operation. The Nexus Collective has developed a new type of stealth technology, the mission commander explained, his violet skin pulsing with concern. We need a team that can infiltrate their research facility and neutralize this threat before it's deployed. Marcus felt Nadara's excitement through their bond, matching his own anticipation. Their shared consciousness had turned them into something unprecedented, a perfect fusion of human adaptability and celestial power. The facility's defenses are calibrated for either human or celestial signatures, the commander continued, but not both simultaneously. Your unique connection makes you invisible to their systems. They never considered we could be so thoroughly joined, Nadara remarked, her silver eyes meeting Marcus's with a knowing gleam. Through their bond, he felt the warmth of her pride in their union. The mission began at dusk, their shuttle approaching the facility under cover of artificial night. Nidara's massive form moved with surprising stealth, while Marcus's smaller size allowed him to access areas she couldn't. Their mental link meant they could coordinate perfectly without speaking. "Remember the first time we met?" Marcus thought to her as they navigated a particularly tight corridor. "You carrying me from battle?" Her amusement flowed through their connection. "You were so stubborn, insisting you could still fight despite being half dead." "Look how far we've come," he replied, feeling her agreement and affection wash over him. Their infiltration went smoothly until they reached the central research chamber. The space was vast, filled with experimental equipment and patrolling guard drones. Through their bond, they formulated a plan without exchanging a word. Nidara moved first, her violet skin glowing just enough to draw attention. The drones converged on her position, leaving Marcus free to access the main console. Their shared consciousness allowed him to utilize her knowledge of celestial technology while she benefited from his human intuition. "They're adapting their scan patterns," Nidara warned through their link. "We need to move faster." Marcus's fingers flew over the console, his movements guided by their combined expertise. "Almost there! Just need to... there!" The facility's alarms blared as their sabotage took effect. Through their bond, they coordinated their escape route, moving as one being despite their size difference. Nidara's powerful strides matched perfectly with Marcus's quicker pace. Their movements synchronized through their shared awareness. They reached the extraction point just as security forces converged on their position. Nidara scooped Marcus up just as she had that first day, but now the action was enhanced by their mental connection. He felt her fierce protectiveness, her joy in their physical contact, her pride in their successful mission. Back aboard the Starlight Sentinel, they retired to their specially designed quarters. The adrenaline of the mission still coursed through their shared consciousness, heightening every sensation. "I never imagined it could be like this," Nidara murmured, her skin glowing with pleasure as Marcus traced patterns on her arm. "The way we move together, think together. The perfect team," Marcus agreed, feeling her happiness echo through their bond. "Though I think we need more practice at some aspects of our coordination." Her skin flickered with anticipation as she caught his meaning. Through their connection, their desires amplified each other, creating a feedback loop of sensation and emotion. Later, as they lay entwined, their shared consciousness still humming with contentment, Marcus reflected on their journey. From that first battlefield rescue to this moment, every step had led them here, to a union that transcended physical differences and cultural boundaries. "You're thinking deep thoughts," Nidara observed, both through their bond and the expression on his face. "Just appreciating how lucky I am," he replied, sending her the full depth of his feelings through their connection. "Who would have thought being wounded in battle would lead to this?" Her skin pulsed with joy as she pulled him closer. "The universe works in mysterious ways, my little warrior." "Little?" he protested with mock indignation, though their bond carried his amusement. "Would you prefer perfectly sized?" she teased, her silver eyes sparkling. Their shared laughter filled the room, their happiness amplified through their connection. They had found something rare and precious, a love that bridged worlds, enhanced by their differences rather than hindered by them. The crystalline gardens of Celestia Prime shimmered in the light of 3 setting suns, creating rainbow patterns that danced across Nidara's violet skin. Marcus watched in fascination as her natural bioluminescence seemed to respond to the changing light, creating intricate patterns he'd never seen before. "It's happening more frequently now," he observed, reaching up to trace one of the glowing patterns on her arm. Through their bond, he felt her pleasure at his touch. "The healers say it's unprecedented," Nidara replied, her silver eyes sparkling with excitement. "Our binding is evolving, growing stronger. My body is adapting to match the intensity of your human emotions." Their shared consciousness hummed with mutual wonder as they explored these new developments. Since their successful mission, their connection had deepened beyond anything either species had documented. Marcus could now sense Nidara's presence even across vast distances, and her natural celestial abilities had begun manifesting in unique ways when they were together. "Watch this," she whispered, extending her hand. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin shifted, and suddenly the light seemed to extend beyond her body, creating a bridge between them. When Marcus touched it, he felt an unprecedented surge of sensation. "That's incredible," he gasped, feeling their shared consciousness expand. "How are you doing that?" "I'm not entirely sure," she admitted, her midnight purple hair shimmering with its own inner light. "It's as if your human capacity for adaptation is somehow enhancing my natural abilities." The healers are fascinated. Through their bond, Marcus sensed her deeper thoughts, her dreams of their future together, her hopes for what their unique union might mean for both their species. The images flowed between them, a home that would accommodate both their needs, a life that would blend their cultures in ways never before imagined. "I want to show you something," Nidara said suddenly, standing to her full height and offering him her hand. Even after all this time, the size difference between them still filled him with a sense of wonder. She led him through the gardens to a secluded area he'd never seen before. A structure stood there, its architecture unlike anything in the main city. It seemed to be designed with both their proportions in mind, seamlessly blending human and celestial aesthetics. "I've been working with the architects," she explained, her skin pulsing with nervous excitement that flowed through their bond. "This would be ours if you want it, a place where we can truly build our life together." Marcus walked through the entrance, marveling at how perfectly everything was scaled. Spaces designed for Nidara's height flowed naturally into areas sized for him, creating an environment that celebrated their differences, rather than trying to compromise them. "It's perfect," he breathed, feeling her joy at his response echo through their connection. "But what about your duties, my responsibilities?" "That's the other surprise," she said, her silver eyes twinkling. "The Council has approved our request for joint command of the new Human Celestial Integration Force. We'll be based here, training others in the techniques we've developed together." The implications washed over him through their bond. They would be pioneers, helping others explore the potential of human-celestial partnerships, not just in combat or diplomacy, but in all aspects of life. "Speaking of integration," Marcus said with a grin, pulling her down for a kiss that sent sparks of shared pleasure through their connection. Her skin brightened in response, the new patterns of light swirling around them both. Their passion ignited through their bond, each feeling the other's desire amplified and reflected back. The light from Nidara's skin enveloped them both, creating a private universe where size and species ceased to matter. Later, as they lay together in their new home, their shared consciousness still singing with contentment, Nidara traced patterns on Marcus's chest. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Being wounded that day, being carried away by a giant alien woman?" Marcus caught her hand, sending her the full force of his feelings through their bond. "Best thing that ever happened to me. Though I have to admit, I never expected to find love on the battlefield." "Humans," she laughed, her skin pulsing with affection. "Always finding joy in the most unexpected places." Through their connection, he felt her deeper meaning, how his human capacity for adaptation and emotion had changed her, had changed their entire society's understanding of what was possible. "We have a saying on Earth," Marcus said, running his fingers through her glowing hair. "Everything happens for a reason." "Indeed it does, my little warrior," she replied, her silver eyes soft with love. "Indeed it does." The morning light of Celestia Prime's 3 suns filtered through the crystalline walls of their home, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that danced across Marcus and Nidara's shared living space. Their dwelling had become a testament to their unique union, a perfect blend of human comfort and celestial grandeur. Marcus stood at the observation window, watching the sunrise while sipping from a cup of Earth-imported coffee. Through their bond, he felt Nidara's consciousness stirring before she physically entered the room. Her presence in his mind had become as natural as breathing, a constant warmth that made him feel complete. "You're up early," she observed, her violet skin shimmering with morning luminescence as she approached. Her casual attire, a flowing robe designed to accommodate her towering frame, caught the light in ways that made Marcus's breath catch. "Couldn't sleep," he admitted, sending her images through their bond of the dreams that had kept him awake, visions of their future together, possibilities that seemed endless. "Show me," she whispered, kneeling beside him so they were closer to eye level. Her silver eyes held that unique mixture of warrior strength and tender affection that had first drawn him to her. Marcus placed his hand against her cheek, Their size difference long since ceased to matter. Through their connection, he shared everything. His hopes, his desires, his complete acceptance of their unconventional life together. "Your emotions are so vibrant," Nidara marveled, her skin pulsing with responsive patterns of light. "Even after all this time, the intensity of human feelings still amazes me." "Says the woman who literally glows with pleasure," Marcus teased, tracing one of the luminescent patterns on her arm. Through their bond, he felt her delight at his touch, amplified by their shared consciousness. "A side effect of loving you," she replied, her midnight purple hair cascading around them as she leaned closer. "The healers are still studying how our bond has affected my bioluminescence. They say it's responding to your human passion, creating new patterns they've never seen before." Their kiss was gentle at first, but quickly deepened as their shared emotions created a feedback loop of sensation. Nidara's natural glow intensified, surrounding them both in a cocoon of light that seemed to pulse in time with their heartbeats. Later, as they lay together in their specially designed sleeping chamber, Marcus marveled at how far they'd come from that first battlefield encounter. "Remember when you used to have to carry me everywhere?" "Used to?" Nidara laughed, demonstrating her point by easily lifting him into her arms. "I still carry you quite often, my little warrior." "Only because you enjoy it," he retorted, feeling her agreement through their bond. "Though I have to admit, being cradled by a beautiful giant alien woman has its perks." Her skin flickered with pleasure at the compliment. "And what perks might those be?" Instead of answering with words, Marcus sent her his feelings through their connection, his complete trust in her strength, his admiration of her grace, his joy in their physical and emotional intimacy. The feedback loop of sensation between them intensified as she responded with her own emotions. "The council was right about one thing," Nidara murmured as their shared consciousness hummed with contentment. "Human adaptability is remarkable. No other species could have formed a bond this deep with a celestial." "Maybe they just needed the right motivation," Marcus suggested, running his fingers through her glowing hair. "Getting rescued by a gorgeous warrior tends to inspire one to adapt quickly." Their shared laughter filled the room, their joy amplified through their connection. Through their bond, Marcus could feel Nidara's deeper thoughts, her pride in their unique relationship, her excitement about their future together, her constant amazement at the depth of human emotion. "The healers want to study our bond again," she said after a moment. "They're particularly interested in how your human characteristics are influencing my natural abilities." "Let me guess. More tests?" "They're fascinated by how our physical intimacy enhances the connection," she replied, her skin pulsing with mischievous light. "Though I've assured them that aspect of our relationship requires no scientific oversight." Marcus grinned, sending her a wave of suggestive thoughts through their bond. "I should hope not. Some things should remain private, even in the name of science." Their shared consciousness filled with warmth and humor as they settled into their morning routine. Their home had become a sanctuary where their differences were celebrated rather than merely accommodated. Every detail, from the dual-scale furniture to the environmental controls that maintained a comfortable temperature for both species, reflected their successful integration. "What shall we do today?" Nidara asked, though through their bond she could already sense his answer. "Stay here," Marcus replied, pulling her close. "Just us, just this." Through their connection, he shared his complete contentment with their intimate world, their perfect union of human passion and celestial grace. Her skin brightened with pleasure as she enveloped him in her embrace. "My precious little warrior," she murmured, her silver eyes soft with love, "always knowing exactly what I need." A year had passed since that fateful day on the battlefield when a wounded human warrior found himself in the arms of a towering celestial woman. Now, standing before the assembled council and Earth representatives, Marcus and Nidara had become living proof of what their species could achieve together. The grand chamber of the Celestial Human Alliance sparkled with the combined light of Earth's sun and Celestia Prime's triple stars, projected through quantum mirrors. Nidara's violet skin glowed with pride as she stood beside Marcus, their size difference now a symbol of their unique bond rather than an obstacle. "The success of your union has exceeded all expectations," the chief elder announced, his ancient eyes twinkling. "Your bond has shown us possibilities we never imagined. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus felt Nidara's joy mingle with his own. Their connection had grown so profound that her bioluminescence now responded to his emotions as much as her own, creating stunning displays that reflected their combined essence. "We've learned so much," Nidara addressed the assembly, her silver eyes bright with emotion. "Human passion combined with celestial abilities has created something entirely new. Something beautiful." Marcus squeezed her hand, sending waves of love through their bond. Her skin pulsed in response, creating patterns that told their story, from battlefield rescue to eternal partnership. Later, in the privacy of their home, they celebrated their journey in their own intimate way. So their shared consciousness hummed with contentment as they held each other, their physical differences long since transformed from challenge to blessing. "Who would have thought," Marcus mused, watching the play of light across Nidara's violet skin, "that being wounded in battle would lead to all this?" "I knew the moment I held you," she replied, cradling him close as she had that first day. "Humans may be small, but your capacity for love is greater than any giant." Their laughter echoed through their bond, a perfect harmony of human warmth and celestial grace. They had found something rare and precious, a love that transcended physical form, a connection that bridged worlds. In the light of three setting suns, their silhouettes merged. The towering warrior woman and her smaller human mate, their hearts beating as one beneath the eternal stars.